Most of us aren't born just knowing how to be good with money. Unless you had really enlightened parents who passed down financial literacy to you while you were growing up, you've probably had your fair share of money mistakes in your life too. That being said, if I can save you from making the same massive money mistakes that I did, I'd like to do my part, so here we go. Hey everyone, I'm Rose, and in this video, I'm gonna share all about the most cringeworthy mistakes that I made in my 20s. And when I say cringeworthy, I mean cringeworthy. The only reason I'm able to share so openly about this stuff on the internet right now is because I've learned from my mistakes, all in the past now, and I also know that there's nothing wrong with me for having made money mistakes. That's how you learn, right? So without further ado, let me get right into massive money mistake number 1, lending money to a friend. And I'm not just talking about spotting your friend at Chipotle because they forgot their wallet. I'm talking like thousands of dollars that I lent to someone who I thought was my friend when I was about 18 years old. First of all, that's a crazy amount of money for a teenager to have, let alone to lend to a friend. Now, people have mixed opinions about lending money to friends, but my personal experience is that it's risky business because that friend ended up never paying me back, which broke my trust and ruined our friendship. Not to mention, it kind of sucked financially. Also, I try not to think about what that money could have turned into if he'd paid me back on time and if I'd been able to invest it. But truth is, it really could have grown into a lot. I truly believe that if you lend money to friends and family, you should either think of it as a gift that you might never get back or draft up an actual legal, formal agreement so there's no ambiguity and it's like a real business transaction. It's honorable to want to help out people that you care about, which is what I wanted to do, but you also have to be smart with your money. Moving right along, here is massive money mistake that I made, number 2, taking on $100,000 of student loan debt for a degree that I don't technically need or use. To give you some background info, I got my undergrad degree in finance at the NYU Stern School of Business in New York City. I admit my finance degree has been pretty useful for what I currently do, but it wasn't necessary. Plenty of personal finance YouTubers, investors, and experts didn't formally study it in school. At the time, I just really wanted to go to NYU, and I felt a lot of pressure to make my Korean parents and relatives proud by going to some sort of brand name school. And so even though tuition was hella expensive and my family couldn't afford it, I actually turned down scholarships at other kind of no-name, lower tier schools and took on a lot of debt to go to NYU. To be fair, a finance degree at NYU or even just a really good school usually pays for itself because all the big name Wall Street firms actively recruit there, which gives you good job prospects. But the problem is, after not even 5 years of working in finance on Wall Street, I realized that that career track wasn't for me. So I stopped needing my college degree, but problem is my student loan payments didn't stop. So up till that point, I'd never really questioned the validity of taking on a lot of debt in order to get an elite education, because oftentimes it pays off and it's worth it. But when you're paying a quarter of your monthly cash flow to pay for a degree that you got in the past that you no longer use, you're gonna have second thoughts. Here's my takeaway. Think about whether your dream career requires a degree or not. A lot of times it doesn't. Entrepreneurship, writer, artist, musician, software developer, a lot of these things don't require a degree. If you really need to get a degree, get it for the cheapest cost possible. I think cost could almost be more important than the name brand of the school. Maybe that's a little controversial, but in my experience, that's kind of what I think. So get scholarships, just go to a public school versus a private school, whatever you need to do to minimize the amount of debt that you take on for your degree. One cool thing you can do, which is actually what a really smart friend of mine did from high school, he went to community college for the first 2 years, which cost nothing, and then he transferred into NYU. So we literally graduated with the exact same degree, but he didn't pay for all that money like I did. Massive money mistake number 3 is a continuation of mistake number 2, getting an expensive degree that put me in a lot of debt. And the mistake is actually paying interest only on these student loans for almost 2 years. When I finished my degree and I graduated, I started getting notifications from my student loan providers about repayment, which is something that we all have to do. And as crazy as it sounds, while I was in school, no one had ever sat down with me to explain how borrowing X amount of dollars translates into X amount of monthly payments later on. So when I found out my student loan payments were gonna be almost $1,000 a month when I graduated, this was my reaction. It was scary enough to be transitioning from college life to adult life, but having like this huge monthly financial obligation all of a sudden was really scary to me. So I called them and I switched over to an interest-only plan, which means I would just be paying the interest and not paying down any of the principal. That obviously would make the monthly payments a lot lower, so I got them down to like $260 a month versus $1,000 a month. But the problem is, 2 years later, my student loans didn't get any smaller because I was just treading water paying interest. Thankfully, I came to my senses. I got really aggressive about getting out of debt after that. And I actually paid off the last of my student loans last year, which I talk more about in this video here, which was very exciting. But moral of the story, never do interest-only payments, whether it's for student loans or any other kind of debt. Switch over to a more affordable repayment plan if you need to, but always try to pay something towards principal. Interest only means you're just treading water. That's not fun. I think more than the technicalities of whether it was interest only or not, I think the mistake here was thinking that I could kick a problem down the road just by paying interest only for now and just kind of sticking my head in the sand, hoping that the situation would get better later, which it obviously doesn't. So definitely don't do what I did. Deal with your financial mistakes head on, pay off that debt, don't just kick the can down the road. Massive money mistake number 4, not knowing anything about personal finance when I got my first job. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had jobs and I've been making my own money since I was 16, waiting tables, babysitting, receptionist, but it was all just kind of pocket money. When I got my first real job out of college, it was kind of like being this hungry 5-year-old being let loose in a candy store. When you don't know anything about money, but you suddenly start making lots of it, you don't all of a sudden become someone who's great with money. You'll just be bad with money, just like before, but your mistakes will just involve a lot more zeros. Case in point, when I got my first bonus check ever, I had literally never seen that much money at once. A bonus check, that's pretty sweet after all you've done is, scrape by in college. So after taxes were taken out and whatnot, my bonus landed in my bank account. It was about $15,000, and it didn't even take a week for all that money to just disappear, like evaporate. Splurging on shoes, bags, clothes, trips, you get the picture, right? If I'd had a little more financial literacy back then, I might have put that money towards big, life-changing financial goals, like a down payment on a house, paying off a big chunk of my student loans, investing. So many better things I could have done with that money. So more money without financial education is a really bad combo. In fact, according to the National Endowment for Financial Education, about 70% of people who win the lottery or receive some sort of large windfall end up going bankrupt within a few years. So whether you have a big bonus coming up, a new job, an inheritance, make sure you take some time to learn about personal finance and create a plan for that money. Otherwise, you'll end up right back where you started. Massive money mistake number 5 is carrying a constant credit card balance throughout the entire first half of my 20s. On and off, my credit card would have anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 on it. Sometimes it would have nothing, but it was always kind of carrying a balance. And because the interest would only cost like $50 a month, I didn't think much of it. But credit cards charge the highest interest out of any other type of debt, 15 to 25% APR. So credit card companies love it when you carry a balance and take your sweet time paying it off. On the flip side, if you could make a 15 to 25% return on your investments instead of paying that interest to somebody else, you would get rich in no time. But if you're carrying a balance, you're making credit card companies rich instead. You're robbing yourself in the process. I used to think pretty nonchalantly about credit card debt, and that was a huge mistake. Now I pay off my credit card every single month. I treat it like the plague because I know that if I get comfortable paying 15 to 25% interest to someone else every month, even if it's on just a small balance, I'll never get rich. It's a mindset thing. I don't want to be making someone else rich by paying them interest. At the very least, I want to not be paying interest. So learn from my mistakes. If you have a balance on your credit cards, make it a priority to get rid of it as fast as possible. On to massive money mistake number 6, not taking advantage of my 401k employer match. At my first job, my company offered its employees a 3-for-1 401k match. That means for every dollar that I put into my 401k, they would have put in $3. It was a really good benefits package. I remember HR telling me about it when I first got hired, but my brain just wasn't able to process that bit of information because I was just too excited about getting a job in the first place. And I was also just too excited about all the money I was about to make and how I was gonna spend it. Like I said, cringeworthy. Thankfully, I got my act together after about a year or so, and I was able to take advantage of this incredible 3-for-1 employer match. And as a result, my 401k grew really fast. That's kind of what employer match does for you. So if you just got your first job, the first thing you need to do is talk to HR and make sure you're taking advantage of all your benefits. 401k match is the big one, but a lot of times your company will offer more benefits like subsidizing your gym membership, subway cards, health and wellness, free like mental health, things like that. All of this essentially amounts to free money. So don't do what I did. Don't say no to free money. Ready for massive money mistake number 7? Taking out a loan from my 401k to pay for my apartment security deposit. It just gets better and better, doesn't it, Rose? That's right. I really wanted to move into a nice apartment in downtown Manhattan, but because it was a nice building, they required a large security deposit up front. And at the time, I didn't have the money for it, so what I did was I borrowed from my 401k. A lot of 401k plans let you do that, but it's only something you should resort to if you're in dire financial need. Wanting to move into a high-rise apartment with an elevator and a doorman in the financial district doesn't count as a dire financial need. The smarter move back then would have been for me to just live within my means and pick a cheaper apartment. Instead, because I took that chunk of money out of my 401k to pay for that security deposit, that money missed out on all the stock market growth that could have happened during that time. Definitely not smart. So even if your 401k allows you to borrow money from it, definitely I don't recommend it unless it's for an absolute emergency. On to massive money mistake number 8, not reviewing my spending because I just didn't want to know. When I wasn't being good with my money, I knew I wasn't being good with my money, but I just didn't want to face the reality of it. So rather than feeling the guilt and embarrassment every time I thought about my finances, I would simply choose to avoid. The problem with this approach is that if you don't know where you stand, you won't know what you need to change or what improvements can be made. If I had plugged my credit card and bank information into an app like Mint, there's a lot of apps that track your spending automatically. It would have been easy to see that I was spending all my extra income on eating out, shopping. It would have been a wake-up call, and I could have made some adjustments from there. I know it's hard not to get emotions mixed up with money, and a lot of times you feel guilty about your spending, but your spending really, it's just data. It's just pie charts and numbers. It's not evidence that you're dumb or irresponsible or whatever. It's just data. It just shows where you've spent your money in the last month. And you can use this data to improve and move closer to your financial goals. But in order to do that, you need to start looking at the data. I really wish I hadn't been so afraid of looking at my numbers. Now I just quickly scan through my bank and credit card transactions every week or so. And if I notice I'm spending too much in one area, I'll cut back. No big deal. It's super helpful and something I want you to start doing ASAP. And last but not least, massive money mistake number 9 is not investing sooner. From a young age, I've always been interested in stocks and investing, but I never invested a meaningful enough amount of money for it to make a huge difference. Of course, now I am investing as much as I can because I understand what it can grow into, but back then, there was money that I could have invested, but I didn't. Of course, coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? Did you know that investing just $500 a month can make you a millionaire in 30 years? So put it a different way, with just $180,000 of your own money contributed in little bits over time at $500 a month, the stock market could grow that to $1 million. Imagine that kind of leverage. Put your money to work, turn $180,000 into $1 million. Now, 30 years is a long time, but that time is gonna pass anyway, right? So might as well benefit from the passage of time as your investments grow year by year. This kind of investing is a no-brainer to set up, and it's really easy to have just running in the background on autopilot. So I don't care who you are, investing $500 a month is an achievable goal for everyone. Heck, I could have started doing that in college with the money that I made waiting tables if I'd known better, but I didn't. Which is why I have a video called Massive Money Mistakes I Made in My 20s. If you want to learn more about investing and just get a head start with your money, check out my free masterclass at rosehan.com/investing. Aside from being smart about budgeting, student loans, credit cards, and all the things I talked about in this video, Getting started with investing is probably the best thing you can do right now to set yourself up for a better financial future in your 30s, 40s, and beyond. I'm all about teaching what I've learned from being in the trenches and making mistakes so that you don't have to. So just go to rosehan.com/investing to sign up and start learning about investing. It's totally free. Link is also below. So that's it for the 9 massive money mistakes I made in my 20s. What do you think? Pretty cringeworthy, right? The good news is, even after all these mistakes that I've made, I have managed to bounce back financially and I'm still standing. You live and you learn. So what about you? What's one of the most cringeworthy money mistakes you've made in your life thus far? Get into the comments so we can all commiserate. And be proud. Ain't no shame in making mistakes, even if they were really dumb, as long as you learn from them and do better for yourself from here on out. That's what counts, right? Thank you so much for watching. I post new videos every Wednesday about making, saving, and investing money. So subscribe to my channel for more videos just like this, and I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye.